name is Tamas, and today is January 29th, 2024. And today with me, my guest is Sabrina Rock. And Sabrina, would you care to share a little bit about who you are, where you live, and what do you do for a living?
Sure. My name is Sabrina Rock. Um, what do I do for a living? Well, I'm a mom, and my primary job is making the world a better place for her by touching one person at a time. And what I do for a living, I'm an executive producer. I'm also the vice chair president of the CMPA Council, and currently working on a couple of projects in production, and transforming narrative to different type of community.
Awesome. Your background, if you don't mind my asking, you came from the Caribbean?
Yeah, so I was born in Haiti. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I was born in Haiti. I was raised most of my life in Montreal, Canada, and I recently moved to Vancouver.
Full. So, to begin, what is spirituality to you?
What is spirituality? It's good. Great question. I think spirituality is a journey, and it's a gift that reunites all of us together. It's the unsaid that, when spoken, no longer have the same signification. It's the space of magic, wonder, wisdom, connection that are different depending of the culture, the system of belief, and experience of each other.
Interesting. So, it's an individual journey, pretty much.
No, actually, it's a collective journey. Live as if it was an individual journey.
Interesting. Great. And what did your life look like before embarking on the spiritual journey?
My spiritual journey started when I was the age of 33. Even though when I was a young little girl, my grandma, who really was attached to Christianity and the Bible and would go to church, would, time to time read me passage of the Bible, so I think she had unconsciously installed in me the notion of faith, like something bigger, something magical could, is there. So she kind of installed it with me. But then when I moved and lived with my parents, my dad was a theist. So the whole idea of religion or of spirituality for him was like a dogma. So it was like there, as we would do a few things, but never like a calling. And how life was, well, it was very rational, pragmatic, um and I always felt that some stuff were happening and I can have an answer. I can say that before spirituality that I was miserable, but I did feel like pointlessness of life, like what was the purpose of life, kind of thing.
Hmm. So, what had you look for something else then?
It was a calling. I believe that, spirituality starts with a calling. So a month before my 33rd birthday, which, in Christianity is the Christ resurrection, well, literally a month before my 33rd birthday, I had a dream and like a pull to be in the Buddhist temple, which was very weird for my community because most of my, cultural background, we practice Christianity or, you know, a form of, Catholicism or anything around the Bible. And then I didn't understand what I had a calling from Buddhism. Like it was just like a calling. And I remember saying to my friend, I don't know why, but on the day of my birthday, I'll end up in a temple, which I did. And it became my whole life journey. So that's where it started.
Wow. And what had you shift and turn towards Buddhism? What may have been missing in what you already had?
Well, like I said, we didn't really practice at home because of that Christianity. And I don't think something has been missing, like a replacement from one thing to another. I really believe that, with spirituality, religion, the path, it's a calling, it's a higher calling bigger than you, And when that calling comes, you have a choice, like the universe or God or the greater, however you want to call it, a higher consciousness. Everybody has a name for it: Jesus, God. I don't know.
A higher power.
Names. Yeah, higher power. Whatever you call that entity, it's a calling, and that entity always gives you a choice to follow it or to not, and either way love you the same. And I think on that day I had chose to follow it, even though it was at the beginning of a new mastery. And for me, Buddhism is is one of those religion that it's a, and also then where my spirituality developed within the inner self and inner consciousness about, a world where in this lifetime we could choose not to suffer. So the idea that suffering was also a choice really attracted me, to that choice, so to that calling. But it was definitely a calling, and it was something definitely unknown from the practices when I got there and how do we do it. And it was also the best gift I ever had. I always say to people, for me, that calling, um, as I practice it, I really came close to what we call illumination, like the nothingness, like this experience that you're whole and complete and united with everything. Everything. It's almost like for people who have experienced, psychedelic or certain drugs, it's like this clear awareness of magic, but without the after effect of the drug. It's like, and it's not even something you could describe. This is why I don't drink anymore and I don't take anything, because I know that that feeling exists in this lifetime. So this is why, for me, it's not a why, it's an answer to a calling. And out of that answer to a calling, Buddhism, on top of being a religion, is also a philosophy that embrace all other religion. So I didn't need to
Mm,
literally go either or, but simply be a space where I embrace all humankind and universal love.
that's wonderful. Awesome. So, what does it look like now?
It's ongoing. I think you never stop learning. There's part of the journey, just like any journey, there's peak. Like I had my peak at 33, and then when I had my calling at 33, but I surrendered to a religion. I think in our era and how my generation, and also coming from maybe a Montreal, Quebec background, surrendering to a religion, you know, is something, a lot of people struggle with, like, they'll say I'm spiritual, but they won't say I'm religious. So out of 33 all the way to 39, I kind of struggle with that. And then at 39, when I moved to British Columbia, near my house, there was the Lian Temple, and I surrendered and became a Buddhist. So I became a Buddhist as newborn religion. And then after that, I transcended, and that was those two peaks moments when wow. And then you go back to what we call a more mortal day to day, what you see life. And recently, which is funny, this is why I did the interview. I went to Mexico and I did a few rituals, spiritual ritual in Mexico. Again, the unknown and the magical of all the connection. I was in a total different tribe and different spiritual ceremony, but yet the person who was doing ceremony was able to connect with me through my own spiritual language. So there is a language bigger than all of us. So and one of the reason I was there is to connect newly with that higher power. I had a lot of insight, a lot of enlightenment, and still have to, still has a lot to learn. And I felt the last past 2 years particularly, it was more stagnant, in my development. And now there's a whole new rebirth, um based on a more, I would say, complex relationship with spirituality, like partner,
Hmm.
with the holy big, like surrendering to the higher power as one, like as me, the servant, and vice versa. This is where I think I'm gonna be going, or my journey right now is toward to me, like that space of surrendering, and being more grounded to that holiness that is involved.
And you mentioned reciprocal.
Yes.
How does that show up?
It's to actually quiet down the modern life, which I think. could be challenging in a world of technology, but I also think technology will force us to do those choices as technology is doing all the cognitive learning and all the technical stuff forces us human to go, well, if the machine is doing that, who am I? But out of that questioning, out of that quieting space, it's always to, be open that, what you see out here is an illusion. Like even this, the compute, like all of it is an illusion. And to so that's the access, I would tell you, to reciprocal. And then the other part of reciprocal is to be able to receive the message from the higher power versus the human needs and wants, which I call the human. Like we could be like 4 year olds, like my 4 year old. Like we got a bunch of stuff, goodies we want, and we want this and we want that, and that doesn't mean that it's not granted. And there is the reciprocal of your higher purpose and your higher mandate that is important to exchange, and I believe to do the purpose that the higher self or God is requesting of you, which is not always easy. And most people, I can't talk for most people, but could be challenging because it does demand a new way of being, doing, and acting.
Right, right. Would you say that you have a personal relationship with a higher power in that case?
I think it's a new relationship developing with the higher power. I think I'm building that relationship. I think my first insight was like, it's like when you meet someone like a girlfriend and you think it's pretty and you're like, wow, you want to know everything about that person. That doesn't mean there's a relationship. And I think what happened over the years in my journey of spirituality, I'm preparing for that ultimate relationship. And I think right now that's the beginning of building that close relationship to God, to the higher self, to the higher purpose. Yeah, I think this is now the journey, like really connecting. All before was like aha moments, data gathering, connecting. But now it's like what we say in a relationship, the dirty, gritty part where, it's commitment, and it's going to be a different form of practice.
Right, right. And tell me about your practice. What does it look like?
In our civilization, modern civilization, we tend to not to have rituals. So one of the things that is important to me is rituals. It's to have a morning ritual with three deep breathing,
Mhm.
which the first breathing is to thank the universe that I'm here. I'm aware in this physical space. The second breathing is to let go any form of attachment, entanglement, or greed. And then the third one is to be at service for the day of what's requested of me. So that would be my morning ritual. With and I practice it also with my daughter, where we do tree breathing. And then we have the night ritual, where I think for the day and reminisce at least three good things that happened during the day that brought me closer. And then the second reading, it's about letting go things that I don't understand, or I am upset about, or I want it in that space of my way, and bringing compassion to that ego. People like to say ego or mean, and this thing that we vilified in human. But the truth is to have compassion for that space and making sure it's okay. And third is to request again the night to be peaceful and to bring the answer needed for the next morning. So those are the fundamental rituals that I would do, that takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to do. And then of course there's other rituals like meditating. um there's the act of meditating, and then there is being in a meditative state, which is moment by moment you're simply aware of where you're at, who you are beyond the physicalness of reality.
Mhm.
And then of course going to the temple. I find going to the temple, I wish I could go more. I used to do a lot of retreats before baby. Now with my responsibility, it's a little bit challenging, but every time I go to the temple, and I would say to any spiritual or religious space, so it doesn't necessarily mean the temple, there is a space of importance to pray and to meditate, including prostration. I know that, a lot of people, got their feelings, but that idea of humbleness and again bringing that space of servitude would be the way I practice. And in the upcoming years, I'd like to elevate that practice and that relationship in sense of, the land and growing the land and nurturing the food, like bringing it in a more concrete and more,
Holistic,
I don't know how to say it.
holistic,
um
or
I don't know.
inclusive?
Inclusive, holistic by default, but more inclusive, more, like, there's walking meditation. People think meditation, you need to be in a quiet place and you meditate, but you could be meditating and talking to you. Like I could be meditating right now and saying, and having a mantra, wishing, peace for earth, or, wishing you well or healing someone, and having that kind of ritual nourish body and soul and mind, not for me, for self. And I think this is something I'd like to elevate.
Wonderful. Doing these practices, has it made you stronger?
I'm trying to stay away from strength because we don't need strength. The higher power has it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would tell you, it allows me, in a world that goes so fast, or the illusion of fast, to actually question the whole time and space experience, including death. Every year we get
Hmm.
older. So I would say it's less about making me stronger or even wiser. People's like, oh, stronger, wiser. I would say you more in a discovery and inquiry about the ordinariness of life,
Hmm.
about those kind of moments that, we like to take in a picture versus being with those moments. I would tell you that's where it brings the source of. So it's going to be a space of more calmness, slowing down, being with, and engaging.
Wonderful. What are some of the difficulties and struggles you've encountered? You spoke to about that a few moments ago. Can you tell me more?
Well, one of the things I saw and I'm seeing is right now the way we're living is counterintuitive from the higher power. So I had an amazing, aha connection when I was in India 8 years ago, and I rediscovered it being in Mexico. So I was in Mexico in a space where we were living in a tree house, and I had minimum, and I felt so rich. You wake up and you see the sea. You go to bed and you hear, animals, and you wake up also hearing the birds. And you don't need, spray for mosquito because the white bats take care of the mosquitoes for
Hmm.
you. And there is a moment you're like, oh my god, this is it, this is like life. And then, the challenge is, I don't live, I live in a modern life where there is a system, and in the system it requires you some economical things to do, and there's the computer, and there's the timeline, and there's the schedule. And I think this challenge is, it's also being a mom, is the dance between stuff and what we really need and want. And it's hard because, I live in Vancouver, and the idea of simplicity, even though we tend to prone a way of living, it's still something that it's not really there. People want to have the big house, have the big car. And it's what we were prone when we talk about success. Same thing with who you are. You need to have a status, a reputation. Simply being a mom at service to humanity and changing the heart of one person at a time, it's not conceptual. It's not what the brain wants.
It's not
So the
glamorous.
challenge
It's
is,
not glamorous.
it's not
Yeah.
glamorous. It's not glamorous. It's almost holistic, okie dokie. Um, and I think that's the bigger challenge for me. Every time people actually ask me that question, who you are, what do you do? And it always confronts me with, does it matter? Could I just be your fellow sister? And could I just be your further lover? Could I just be your further brother? Could I just be with you? And that's the challenge. It's having that common language for everybody. And I have a 4 year old, and she's in the princess and the shoes and the tea. And, she's not, she is literally constructing that human identity. So it is a challenge every day to find a way to balance the whole thing and still be part of a community.
Hmm. Were there any times where you wanted to quit?
I never thought about quitting my spiritual. So once I said yes to the calling, it was it. Like it was a yes to the
Mm,
calling. Was there a moment that I've been tested? Yes. Have I been tested the last 5 years when it comes to my faith and spirituality? Yes.
mm,
Do I get tested when I look at what's going on in Israel, Palestine, Africa, my birth country, First Nation, what name it? Yes. I think a superhero today is to be able to wake up and love another fellow human with everything that's going on. So in that space, the test is ongoing, but there's also the strength behind it. Yeah.
got it. Inside of spirituality, what are you committed to?
Universal love. I'm committed that people experience that space that is universal. Yeah, so I don't believe that we fall in love. I believe love is an ascension. We ascend to love. And it's just actually when we say that, oh, I fell in love with someone, that's actually a false thing because your heart is a muscle. So whenever, there's a stretch or pain or stuff, those emotions it's actually an opportunity, just like training to stretch the muscle. So consider that all the experience, the toughness or the challenges is it's the experience to ascend in love, and where forgiveness become a space to move forward, the act of moving forward by ascending um love. So that's where I'm at, I guess. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but yeah.
Hmm. Well, um, leads me back to my question from earlier. Has this made you stronger?
No, I don't. I think I don't need strength. God is my
Okay.
strength. Like the holy power, I give him the strength. That's his job. My job is to serve his mission.
Mm,
So I would say the best word, it gave me resilience. God granted me resilience. Out of his grantfulness of resilience, you know, there's some action that might be seen as strength.
okay.
Um, that's how I see it.
Okay.
This whole thing of we're strong, we're a hero, we have a strength, it's more of that realm that is the illusion of actually what is, it's not even required. Why would you need strength to love?
Mm,
So for me, the question you had asked me about for everyone is to be with anyone, like anyone,
mhm,
any living entity and beings, and say, hey, you are love. And you could experience that magical euphoria,
mm.
connection, love with another human being without necessarily being intimate, or when I'm with intimate, like sexual and a
Yeah,
partner.
yeah.
You could actually have that magic. And it could be available 24 hours, 7 days a week, and then we transform the planet. So that's my stand for humanity.
Cool. Where did you seek out your training on this path?
Like I said, I never seeked out my training. My training called me. I know some people will start by seeking out,
Mm,
and that doesn't mean I didn't do research out of my journey. But like I said, at 33, a month before my 33rd birthday,
mm,
I had a calling, and I followed that calling. And depending of the wave or the phase of my life, the calling will be louder, and sometimes it will be like a whisper. But I always follow what, I guess people will say feminine intuition, but I always follow that little voice. Even how crazy, absurd, it is, so it always called me, it called upon me to go to India, call upon me to go to Mexico, it called upon me to say yes to this interview. Yeah, I think I think the seeker seeks us versus us seeking him or they.
Cool. Did you have a mentor inside of this? Somebody to train you,
Well,
to guide you along?
well, the Holy Spirit is the mentor. The holy higher power is the mentor. I think in this world, God will come and speak to men's language, and it's still a man. It's still a human. It's not the entity. And I think this is what's transforming, you know. And don't get me wrong, there is coaching and development, and there's a lot of manifesting tools. But when you make those tools your God, you're not listening to it.
Hmm.
So the holy mentor is quiet yourself down and you will hear it. It will mentor you. And out of that mentor, the right people will come into the life. Even the ones that you don't like that seems to be heartbreaking. It's all part of that space of mentoring versus going to get a person or a physical
Hmm.
entity that is you're going to follow or teach. Now that said, as a Buddhist, of course, I go to the temple. Of course, Siddhartha, who became Gautam Buddha, and all the various gods there is in the religions, is things that I will pray from a space of religion. And even Buddha says, I'm all phenomenons and all phenomenons are me.
Hmm.
So, it's that dance between the divine you could hear in someone, because it could be somebody that from the streets, could give you and have sin, or just you could have this great hero that you idealize, and will give you the same thing. So I think it's really important for me when I say I don't think so. I think it's really the higher power who brings me the right conversation, and through the speaking and the manifestation of this reality, I get the training that I need.
Wonderful. That was very well put. And that brings me to the end of my questions, except for one last one. Is there anything you wish to add that we haven't addressed or covered?
Well, first, thank you for taking the time and inquiring about spirituality and having that space available for others. And I am humble that you called me to be part of that experience. So that's what I had to say. And thank you for my piece of, I hope, a little bit of wisdom to contribute to others.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be greatly appreciated. It is over here with me. And I thank you for being here and sharing your experiences. And finally, what would you like to be acknowledged for?
Acknowledgement. Do we acknowledge the sun for shining? Do we acknowledge water for running? You know, do I need acknowledgement? No. If the best way I could be acknowledged is to have a prayer for the ones who are suffering, that's the best acknowledgement you could give to me.
Well, thank you so very much. And I, uh, I wish only the best. And the more you go down this path and discover, uh, the more your smile radiates through the room.